Well, thank you so much. Welcome. Welcome, welcome,
No,
welcome, welcome,
it's a
welcome.
pleasure.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, see, we have so many questions here, but let me just
Yeah.
put it this way. When
Okay.
when I start with the first one and let you speak, then I will open the floor. Are you okay with that? Can I open
Okay.
the floor for
Oh
that?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm happy to also, I mean, I know some of you, but obviously you know how these things go. Sometimes you meet a lot of people. But if you could reintroduce yourself, I would appreciate it.
Okay. So, do you want everybody to introduce themselves or only me?
That would be great. Yeah. You never know where I can see one of your
Okay.
beautiful
So, are
faces.
you giving us? So, how much time are you giving us?
We'll just stay. When it's time to go, I'll let you know. Probably,
Because
yeah, yeah. Don't worry about the time.
because this one we are now toasting you to stay with us. So,
It's all good.
okay, okay. So, let me start with myself. Everybody knows me now. Louisa Olunosen Ibaze. What did I say the other time? The question of home. Hold
Yeah.
on, please. I need to mute people, please. Can you please mute yourselves? Thank you. Uh-huh. So, founder of the book club. This is 7 years.
Wow.
Grew up in the north. I look like an Igbo woman. I write books. And
Okay.
what else again? Um,
Okay.
what else again? Everything books I love. So yeah. So that's basically what I'm gonna say. There's just a lot about me, but yeah, this is it. So
Mm.
please, I think okay. So what I'm gonna do it this way. Before people ask questions, I'll ask them to introduce themselves. Is it okay that
Okay.
way? Okay,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
okay. So
Appreciate
let
that.
me just start it quickly this way. The footsteps of one man cannot create a stampede. Igbo proverb. Then the next one, the madman has entered our house with violence, defiling our sacred grounds, claiming the single truth of the universe, bending down our high priests with iron. Ah, yes, the children who walked on our forefathers' graves shall be stricken with madness. They shall grow the fangs of the lizard. They shall devour each other before our eyes. And by ancient command, it is forbidden to stop them.
Mm.
So you see, when I read this book,
Mm.
I had different questions because the way the book started, I brought it home to me because I know like my dad traveled a lot. And as kids, when I grew up in the North, I had the opportunity to play.
Mm.
And mad people, there used to be this thing that mad people see what we don't see. So I was, because one of the key questions I'm going to ask is, was it really a curse or a madman just ranting? And the power of prophecy. See,
Yeah.
I was born as a child, I was born with gray hair. So I was
Mm.
that little girl in nursery that everybody knew with gray hair. They have prophesied so many things. You'll be a billionaire, you'll be this. I'm still waiting
Mm.
to see the money.
Mm.
So good. So my key questions this. Somebody had asked, what did the madman represent?
Mm.
Why did he rape his mom? Someone said the narrator Ben they feel it was autistic.
Uh,
Some also mentioned the significance of the father's presence.
mm.
And then prophecy, the power of the mind.
Mm.
So, and then the end of the book, was it reality or him just thinking?
Mm.
So I will let you start with this. Then, if you have more time, I will open the floor for people to ask questions, please. Let me start it that way.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Well, again, thank you very much for reading. When I started writing, I used to, um, I was an outlier basically in my family, even though I was from a very big family.
Okay.
And the one thing that I always desired was that somebody would read me.
Mm,
Because at the time it was only my dad and my younger sister Kelechi who was interested in the stuff I was writing. So for wonderful people like you to in Canada to be reading this book, and this book especially has it has opened doors for me, I have to say. So a lot of people who have read the book, and for that I'm grateful. Okay, as your questions, I believe it or not, it's 11 years now since the book came out. So some of the details are not quite apparent, but I would try my best.
okay.
So in terms of the idea of the madman, I think that you're right. There are tropes And in fact, folk believes back home, and to some extent in Europe, actually, I lived in Cyprus, and the Greeks, even in classical Greek drama, Euripides,
Okay.
there is the sense that the people who are so-called quote unquote mad have because of the thinness of their consciousness,
Okay.
they are very close to the supernatural, and they can receive wisdom that normal people may not be privy to. And to much a greater extent, that is true because there's a thin line between the natural and the supernatural. Oh, so that's the sort of launching pad for which most of my work comes through. So I believe that the life that we live, I think I said it in the last time I was here as well, that the life is spiritual and quite mystical
Okay.
in the sense that, I have never believed that everything you see, everything you do is your total will. There's no such thing as complete freedom. Like you can't decide. Let's say that I just want to go about naked. I mean, today,
Mm-hmm.
I cannot do that. I will get put in jail. Even though I'm technically free, it's
Yeah.
just you live under some government. So that being the background, I wanted primarily to explore this very strong bond between siblings. Having come from a home where I have 11 siblings, and I was so bonded to them that, the first time I left home, we were living in Makurdi, Benue State, in the middle of Nigeria, back to the east, for school. I
Okay.
realized that I didn't have a friend because, I was so close to my siblings that I did not have even a need to have a friend. So I began to explore what that bond means and what can break it.
Okay.
So that's where the madman comes in. I played with a few ideas. Okay, maybe the brothers are much older and they all fall in love with the same woman. Then I thought that's sort of cliche.
You
Then
see.
I came up with the idea that they invested in some sort of enterprise and it failed and it fractured the relationship. But then, at that time I was living in Cyprus.
Okay.
Then of course, I would call home every now and then. And then, sometimes the pastor of our local church back in Nigeria would pray for me. And they were always talking about prophecy. And one day, I don't know what clicked, and I just had this memory of while I was growing up in Akure, there was a day when some guy came into the school and he said he could see the future, you know.
Yeah.
And I don't really remember what happened, but he just caused a sort of a wreck, a sort of a chaos in the school because, he was a palm reader and I remember it being seared into my consciousness that there's somebody who could see the future. So for some reason, at this point, so many years later, when I'm looking for this, catalyst of destruction
Yeah.
for the novel, that idea came to me, and that was really how the character of Abulu was born. So he is that figure who comes in and disrupts the bond between brothers.
Okay.
So the aspect of the prophecy then again came in because I thought, okay, he has the ability to see the future. What does he do with that? If that seed is sown, what happens with it? So that's really the idea.
Okay. Since you asked us to introduce ourselves, I think I will just ask everybody, please just quickly mention your name and where you are joining from so that we can continue with our questions. Okay. So from my left, I see Zenith. I'll just call your name. You introduce yourself. Zenith.
Hi, it's my second time being here. So happy to be here. My name is Zenith. I'm from Zambia, but I'm in Baltimore today.
Okay. I see Omolola.
Hi, and it's my second time being here. I'm Nigerian, of course, and I live in Dallas, Texas area.
Okay.
Okay.
I see Ndidi.
Oh, I'm Indiniwaka. I live in Atlanta, Georgia. Nice to meet you.
Okay. You're very close to me. I'm in Athens.
Oh, really? Okay. That's
Yeah.
where you live primarily? Oh, you're.
Yes. I'm a professor at UGA. So
Oh, wow, wow.
yeah.
That's exceptional. Well done. Well done.
Yeah.
Okay. I see Heather.
Hi, good morning. My name is Heather De Silva, and I'm from Montreal.
Okay. So that's one of our grandmas that gives us wisdom nuggets. Then we have another one down there, Hemilin. Yeah. So Dupe.
Hi, I'm Odupe Williams. I'm joining from Alberta in Canada. Nice to meet you
Okay.
and
Nice to
lovely
meet you.
book. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, that's your daughter there. Bukola.
Hi, my name is Bukola. I live in the UK, so I'm calling from Kent in the UK.
Okay.
All
Wonderful.
right, then there's
Thank you.
Nima.
Hi, my name is Mima. I am calling from Castleman, Ontario.
Okay.
Then there's Mpangela.
Hello, Pangela, Zambian born. I am from Perth, Western Australia.
Okay. Well, that name sounds South African, but also yes, I see how it's Zambian as well. Okay.
Then there's Yinka. Yinka, are you there?
Hi,
Hello.
Inka, Yoruba, Nigerian girl based in Ottawa, Canada.
Okay.
Glad to
Okay. There's Hemilin, Miss H.
Hello, hi.
Hi.
Ermeline from Montreal, Canada. And thank you. I guess you're very artistic, right?
Artistic.
Yes, like you could do a lot
Yes.
of creativity.
I try to my sister. It's not easy, but yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss H. And
All
our resident psychotherapist, Lola.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us. My name is Lola, Nigerian born, living in Ottawa, Canada. Thank you for the book. Really
No,
interesting.
I appreciate your reading. It's wonderful.
Then Laide. Laide, can you speak? Okay.
Hi.
Introduce
Hello.
yourself.
She's always gymming. This is
Yes, at work, making money. Oh yeah, Laide, introduce
Okay.
yourself.
Everybody knows me, so let's move on.
All
Okay.
right.
All right,
Okay.
thank you. So who wants to go next with questions, please? So that we move very quickly. Lola, okay, I see your hand up. Please use the raise hand button at the bottom. Lola, I see your hand up. Lola, start. Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm not sure that I really have a question, but just to go back to what Dupe was saying, that what could the parents have done differently? In my own opinion, and from her point that the mom did everything, the book doesn't really say that the mom did everything. She was present, but not really present, in my opinion. So, and then of course, the absence of the father. I think the moment I read the father was leaving to go to wherever he went to, I'm like, oh damn, this is going to be a terrible something. And but I didn't expect the way it went. I thought maybe he would have a different family and all that stuff, which is usually the common thing. So I was really happy that it didn't go that theme, but this too was kind of different in a way. And of course, I've heard of the madman, being close to spiritual, and you hear that they can have these. So I think that even though the mother was present, she wasn't really, and so that also kind of, and the absence of parents, always creates chaos. So, but that's just my own contribution. There you go. And yes, the
No,
ending. Oh, the
that's a
ending of the
wonderful.
book. Sorry, the ending of the book. What was going on there?
So that's
Like,
your question, the ending of the
yes,
book.
that was
That's your
my
question. Okay. The ending of
what
the book.
happened
Yeah.
in that ending?
Okay.
I was
Yeah.
totally
Well, a
confused.
lot of people always ask me about that. The the thing with endings for me, especially with the fisherman. See, the fisherman begins where it ends. It begins from if you notice. So he's in the courtroom and he's telling this story to this jury. So and at the end of we don't know that, of course, in the beginning, but when you get to closer to the end, maybe two chapters to the end, you realize that this is in fact what is happening. So that's the first thing. It's a sort of a cyclical narrative in that way. I also did that in my second novel. Always been interested in this sort of confessional storytelling where you are trying to make a case about something to some sort of jury. Sometimes the jury, in this case, of course, is a dual one. So there's the actual judge and the people in the courtroom, but also the reader, because the reader has a lot of at that point is quite invested in the story of this family. Okay, but then in that sense, I wanted to show that so the story ends at the point where he finishes that confession. My brother comes back home and sorry. Okay, so no, we move away from the courtroom a little bit, towards the future. So the story ends at the I would say 95% of the story ends at the courtroom. And then what happens after that? It really is a sort of a add-on. Simply because I want to project a little bit into the future and also touch on something else that is of importance in the novel. So the story is told by two people who are one person. So the courtroom narrator is Benjamin, the 9-year-old. But if you notice, there are times when there are interventions from the future that are more matured. They at least judgments that overlay what he's saying that could not have been from a 9-year-old. And in fact, there is a gesture towards the future in which he says, now that I am an adult with children of my own, which is the impetus why, he's also recalling the story. So what I mean to say here is that there is Benjamin, the 9-year-old, who is telling the story in a future that is not too distant from when the story began. I would say in a sort of a 3-year or 2-year period. And then there is Benjamin, who is in his early 30s, who is also telling the story. So the two narrators collide and sometimes disintegrate, and become separate. So that's what I have done. I mean, it's not, I would not say that it's necessarily original. I've seen at least two American novels that I know of who have done that sort of storytelling mode. So in some ways, the second Benjamin, the adult one, is the one who goes further than the courtroom narrative. So he's the one who is able to say, my brother came home, I saw him, and then basically we reconcile. So the shadow that he's seeing, obviously, is his brother. But, there's also a sense in which you need to create mystery in the narrative. So I want you to be able to determine certain things for yourself.
Okay. So the order of questions will be Bukola, Modupe, and Zenith. But I wanted to say something quickly here. The name of the river was Omi Allah. And this is me putting Yoruba and Igbo together.
Yeah.
Omi is water, Allah is madness. So it's like it's saying in my mind, when I was reading in my mind was river of madness. So was there that river itself, was it symbolic? Was it cultural? Was it spiritual? Because I think of the river and I think of Abulu. And I go, there is something there. So this Abulu the madman, then the river of madness. And the things they saw around it. Yeah.
I will say that that river is real. So there are two characters in this book. People ask me a lot. It's very funny if this story is real. In fact, I think it must have been in 2015. I did a reading in Berlin and there was a book club like you guys of, like European women. And they were so sad. They genuinely believed that, these were my siblings. And this happened to me, that they went and bought they went to the African store there. And even though I was coming from the US, they brought me Ghana must go full of these things, full stuff. They're like, we put
Oh,
together. We wanted to comfort you. I laughed. Of course, I couldn't take those with me because I was on tour
yeah.
going from here to Spain, so it was a waste of money. But a great gesture. But anyway, so jokes apart, there are two characters that are close to real here,
Mhm.
and one of them is Akure,
Wow.
the town. Yes. So as I remember it, is almost. In fact, it's funny. There are some super fans of the book who have gone to the river. They've mapped. There's one guy, I would see if I can find this. He runs a blog, dedicated to this book. Not that you should do that, but the people who do stuff. And he went to the river. So it was a real place.
Okay.
Yes, it's not. I didn't really make the connection of Allah. Allah, of course, in Igbo, also Ani is the goddess of earth.
Okay.
But Omi Allah, Allah, I don't know what Allah means in Yoruba, but Omi, of course, is a stream or a river.
River.
So you're right in that sense.
Okay. So the questions will go Bukola, Modupe, Zenith, Mima, Ndidi. Okay, Bukola, please.
Thank you so much. Actually, thank you so much for joining us, Chigozie, and for the book. And in answering Modupe's question, you've actually touched on what my question was about. And my question is just about, I've read all your books. I love them all. Thank you, including the essay you have in Of This Our Country. So I'm a big fan. Maybe
Okay.
definitely behind Laide or somewhere. Anyway, so I love the books, but I kept thinking that you have a distinct way of writing, and it's not just one distinct way of writing. You write very differently from most people. And in An Orchestra of Minority, the narrator was a spirit being. There was, a spirit audience. In this place, we had. So I kept thinking, how do you come about this? And then you started talking in your answer to Modupe's question. You started talking about the fact that you like almost having a panel or an audience or people, and then you come from that spiritual. Well, you didn't say the word spiritual, but I have a feeling that you have that. And I'm not sure if everybody got the fact that we heard from a 9-year-old, and of course the future person. So all of this. So my question is, the main question I wanted to ask is that in all these writing styles, do you torture yourself? Do you enjoy writing like that, or do you just really want to write something that is very, very different, and then you go out of it? Because it's much more difficult to write like this than to write the way most people write, just from one person's point of view, or and if you were to choose, I know books are probably like your children, but if you were to choose, which of your books would you say is your best
Please don't ask me
book?
that.
Okay, or did you enjoy writing the most?
Which one do I prefer? Okay. Yeah, it's a question that I don't know that I will be able to answer it, just because, there is a way in which these things are from your consciousness somehow. They are somewhat part of you. Okay, but thank you for saying those nice things. About the style. So when I began writing from very young. I wrote an essay about how I began in the New York Times a couple of years ago. If you are interested, you can read it. So I began to write very early. I was 7 or 8 years old at the time. But towards my teen, when I was reading very voraciously, I realized that there were categories of books. In fact, I made a note. I still have it. It's so dogged and dead. The pages are falling apart. But it's interesting to go back and look at myself at 14. And I have ruled a line between the two, great books, not so great, bad books. So I had this hierarchy from very young. And there was a sort of an unconscious decision that I made, which now has become, I didn't even realize it, but now I think it's a sort of principle of composition, which is that I would rather not write than write a book that is forgettable or dispensable, you know, because there are a lot of books that you read, and I'm telling you, you read them in the morning, you don't remember them by evening, or the next day, or weeks later. But what kind of book can you read, and you will remember that book? Not even, you will not forget days, weeks. It lingers in your mind, months, even years. That's the kind of book that I want to write. So, which meant that I had to be very, very, very thorough and give a lot of thought into what can make a book be that. And so I made some very conscious decisions. And one of the ways in which so I'm very interested in that lastiness, is to create non-traditional structures. You know, take an orchestra of minorities, as Louisa said earlier. You know, or actually, Bukola, you said about how it's told by the chi of the main character. Yes, that's true. So, you know, I remember when I told a friend of mine who is a big Nigerian writer that I was going to do that, and he laughed. He said, "How are you going to even do that?" And I answered him honestly. I said, "I don't know, but I'm going to try." You know.
And you did it well. You actually did it so
So,
well.
so I've always wanted to do that, you know, the road to the country through this vision, you know, and this one, which seems like the simplest of the books, but you know, this when you open it, you will even laugh. Like, what is this? You know, my brother is a spider, my father is a bird. You know, it feels simplistic, but you know, that telling stories by association. You know, basically the premise here is quite simple. A 8, 9 year old doesn't understand the complex matters of life. So what does he do? You know, his dad leaves home. How does he understand that? Well, by associating it with something that is familiar with. You know, if let's say a boy like that goes to school and he believes himself to be strong, but another guy about his age beats him blue. He's the only way he can understand that discrepancy in strength is, okay, that guy is a Superman if he's into comics. You know, Benjamin is into animals. So that association allows, and so those are just, so I look for stuff like that. And I think honestly, if there's any reason why, because you know, at the end of the day, this is a very simple story. I don't understand, you know, how you know, Chinese is sold what 100,000 copies in China, you know, like an African of, you know, so what makes people connect with this? But I think is you know, those things that that small trick, you know, I think.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sorry, you talked about putting great books and not great books. Would you recommend us one great book, please? Sorry to jump.
Oh, well, this is, I no longer do that. It's when, as I said, when I was growing up. Um, Well, obviously, I'm much older now. My taste has kind of changed, but I would say that growing up, you know, actually, you know, I have right here an example of what I might consider a great book. So this book I find very great.
The God of Small.
The
Oh,
God of
that's
Small
right.
Things.
The God of Small Things.
Yes, so that's an example of,
I love that
you
book.
know, what I
I love
consider
it
a
too.
great
Yeah.
book. Yes, it does the kind of thing that I talk about. It's not a book that you can forget in you know, years. I read it, you know, about 15 years ago. Or 14 years ago. I still remember the details. Of course, I've reread it after then, but yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Modupe.
Yes, so from what you said, your writing tugs at the emotions of people, and that's why those people offer to buy you all those things and bring, it's so the writing is so real. And for me, that's how I'll give you an example. As I was reading, my husband's like, you're just sighing. You're just sighing. You're like, hey, and truly, my question to you, as a father, a son, your parents, you have siblings, what would you have done differently to change the lives of those boys? Because truly, I know we've said some things we can't control. Life is all about there are things we can't control, but what would you have done to reduce? Because I feel all the children have been scarred, all of them, from witnessing the blood, the suicide. They've all been scarred, even if life becomes better for them afterwards. I keep thinking in my head, what could the parents have done to maybe bring them to Canada eventually? And when I say that, I felt, for instance, the mom, I put myself in her shoes. She's feeding them, she's correcting them, she's done the prayer portion. That's what I would have done. The only other thing I keep asking myself is, should she have physically moved the children apart? But then I'm like, who is going to take my children? Why would I have to separate my children because I don't want the prophecy of a madman to come to pass? If I'd said, okay, go stay with your daddy and the rest of them stay with me, was the father able to take care of, would he have been able to take care of one? So if you put yourself in their shoes as a father, what would you have done differently to reduce the outcome? That's for me, that's what I want to hear, your point of view. Thank you.
Okay. Well, man, that's a wonderful question. It's been 11 years. I don't remember anybody asking me this question. Well, I can only speak for myself. As a dad, I'm kind of involved with my children just for a couple reasons. Number one, they are born in America, and I have they are like, I guess they would consider themselves black in America. Their mom is, as in my woman is half Syrian, so Arab, sort of American. So they are mixed. So I have a worry that they will, you know, there are some stereotypes that I have to fight consciously. So I try to teach them certain things. So that's one of the reasons why I'm very involved. I pick out their schools, I name them, I teach them. They are going to an Igbo school right now. So that said, I also know, because I have a lot of friends, some guys are not like that. They don't even understand my devotion. So maybe my sense of Agu is that he's the kind of dad who is more involved who is more career driven than family oriented. But the circumstances changed that. Remember his wife their mom was always trying to get him to stay home, but he doesn't stay. He could have, I suppose, worked his transfer to stay back in Accra, but he doesn't until, of course, tragedy happens, and then he has to, in fact, resign the job altogether. So I don't know that there is anything that she could have done. So she is, of all the characters, she's the only one who is not compared to an animal. Rather she is the keeper of animals, which is the falconer, one who tends. But so in some ways, she's in the conceptualization of Benjamin in retelling what happened to his family. She is like basically the only line of defense. The dad isn't necessarily there. He's, in fact, there's the chapters prior to meeting Abulu speaks about the loss of his influence, in this sort of grandiose language. He snaps as a sort of he's a shade that crumbles because, he's not there to enforce that drama of influence. So So I wouldn't say that, except he maybe quit his job or, as I said, was able to stay back. There's really nothing she could have done. Maybe now that I'm more into, I've been reading the Bible recently. I now believe more in the power of prayer than I did when I wrote The Fisherman. Maybe prayers could have done something against what at the time I conceived as an impregnable force. The words of Abulu cannot be stopped. And actually one of the reasons why I did that also is the power of prophecy. In the Christian doctrine and even in occult literature, you see a lot of this. Words is the currency of the spiritual. There's everything. The word was made by words. It came into being. Jesus was spoken. It became flesh and exist. So this is, words have power. So once that word is spoken into life, it becomes a thing that cannot be stopped. At least that is the way I see it. So what can you do about that? I don't think there's anything.
Thank you. Zenith?
What a wonderful book. I listened to it and I remember it was 9 hours and I looked down, I had 30 minutes. I was like, wait, it's almost over. Like, no. But anyway, the question, and I had a different question, but you answered it. And the question I'm going to ask, that if you could have a conversation with one of the brothers today, who would it be and why?
Obviously, I guess it's Ikenna. There's the drama of his, for lack of a better term, infection, is what is very interesting to me. I would tell you that I haven't read the book, because I don't read my books, so I only write them. I cannot, it's very difficult to, even when I do excerpts, like reading, I have to change a lot because, it's my work. So I always feel when I return to any work that is quite bad and I need to revise it. So I only go by what I wrote in there, and sometimes people will tell me, "Oh, well, that's not the last version. This, this is strange." But I think that the way, at least I wrote the drama of his metamorphosis, is to me something that feels quite real to me, but also very sad, because he does love his brothers. There's a moment that Benjamin recollects where he almost puts his life on the line during the MK Abiola, riots. And that to me, it's like, that's a little boy. He's what? Only 13, 14 at the time. For him to do, in fact, he was much younger. He was about 12, because that was what happened like prior to that year. So for him to be so changed, for him to feel, it's almost like he doesn't want to hate his brothers, but in the clouding of his mind, he feels like he has no choice. And that to me is tragic. It's very sad. So I would, of course, try to like convince him that, maybe you don't have to believe this guy. Because see, even though, words have power, I feel like we have, again, to go back to the Christian belief system, or even the Igbo belief system, there's agency, there's free will, so you can argue even with your chi. So if you don't accept something, it's like demonic possessions. People who do deliverance will tell you that if you renounce the demonic, they cannot stay in you. So if he does not come into agreement with those words, there is a way in which it can still affect him, but not as much. So I think that would be the conversation that I would have with him. It would be more of an intervention than anything else.
Thank you.
Thank you. So there's Mima, Ndidi, and then Lala. Mima?
Hello. So I'm going to start by saying again, thank you for this book. I really enjoy the way that you write, and I can't say that about a lot of authors. You, in your usual way, have answered a couple of my questions already through talking about other people's questions, but I really wanted to know. So I'm going to take you back 11 years, and I want to know when you were playing around with ideas about this book and you were trying to decide how to approach it, why did you choose Benjamin to be your voice, and why did you use him as your scapegoat?
Okay, very good question. It's so funny because, we recently, came to Georgia. And so moving and, getting a house and putting stuff in fact, stuff is still being loaded. I came by some of the early manuscripts. I was just out of boredom looking at them sometime last year. And apparently I had written different versions. As I said, I'm always looking for that, at least, even if it's not original, something that feels like it's original structure. And I wrote, in fact, there's one version that is from the perspective of Abulu, from a third person, but it's him that is the main character and it's about his life. You see how his chapter is sort of compressed. That was the whole thing. And in the landscape of the novel, the family is not necessarily a footnote, but it's like a fraction of the story. It's about how he dies. These are the boys who kill him, and he's solely speaking about them. But then I felt like, you know what, this is not, I'm not as interested in his story as I'm interested in the story of the brothers. And so this is to say that, the coming to that decision that leads to the actual last product was not an easy thing. In fact, see, I tell my students, I say, fiction is decision making. That is what it is. What distinguishes a successful book or an effective novel from one that is not effective is the quality of your decision. Because, think of any book at all. The God of Small Things, for example, there are thousands of possibilities of where it could start, for example. The fisherman could start when Ikenna was born. It could start even when James and Agnes came. I'm sorry, what is the name of the mother? I've kind of forgotten. Adako came together. Yes, and it could start anywhere. It could start when they meet Abulu. So, but what informs the decision of where it begins, where it ends, and stuff like that is really decision. So you have to try a lot of things to come to what you feel is the best decision. And even then, you are taking a risk because it may or may not succeed. So I don't really believe in this thing where people say talent, and all of that. But in that aspect, how do you come to that decision that feels like the best? I think there's something mysterious about that. So that's where maybe some form of, you know, original talent can come in, because I don't know. I don't know why I decided that this is the best thing. I just decided that, okay, this seems like the best choice, and I went with it.
Okay. And your use of animals, I know you spoke briefly about it, but Benjamin's love for animals and his attributing animals to certain people or everybody, um, you were simply trying to explain to us, basically from a 9-year-old's point of view, how he would view things. That was the primary goal of using
Yes.
animals. Okay.
Yes. In
Okay.
fact, I stumbled by that structure that by serendipity. So I had, as I said, I wrote the novel in a traditional voice. Benjamin is telling the story as the last choice of, it's not going to be Abulu, it's not going to be, Ikenna or whatever. It's going to be Benjamin. I just wanted the last brother to survive. I knew that, Ikenna and Boja were going to die. So it had to be either Obembe or Benjamin. So, but as I said, I was not satisfied. And so I go from Cyprus. So I began writing the novel in 2009. I went to Cyprus in the summer of 2010. Sorry, back home from Cyprus to Nigeria. And I had been away for what, about 2 years. And my younger brother, whose name actually is Benjamin, and he's at that time he's about 7, 8, and he hadn't seen me in a while. And I'm so tired. I've been traveling. It's like one of these long flights because it was very cheap. And, so I'm about to sleep. And he was just telling me stuff, brother, he wouldn't take no for an answer. And I'm dozing. I'm just like nodding. And then he starts saying something. Um, he's trying to describe a new neighbor that had come. Apparently, those people had like, a number of children. And he was like, oh, these people, they are like soldier ants. And the other boy, he runs very fast. He's like a rabbit. And I was like, wait a minute, that is it. That is what I've been looking for. So this boy is trying to describe these things to me. And this is what he's using as the basis for understanding. And that night, as tired as I was, I began to rewrite the book,
Oh,
because
okay.
remember, I've been searching for that structure, and everything was just not working. And he said that, and I took it. So that was the point in which I'm like, okay, as a thank you to him. He doesn't know that it was, of course, he was so young. I changed the name
Yeah.
to Benjamin. So yeah, it's just that how is he going to be able to tell this complex story? A 9-year-old doesn't even know what death means. How does he explain that his brothers are doing these things, is by is by these associations. He's like a spider. What do spiders do? They hide. They can be in your house and you won't know. There's a spider web in your room, in your bedroom for
Yeah.
months. That's how he's able to understand, the the phenomenon of Boja being in that well. They are drinking from the water, but nobody knows
Yeah.
that
Nobody
is there.
knows.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. That makes sense. I just want to make a final point, just very briefly, about prophecy. And I've seen it in your other book, No Road to the Country, and this
The
book as
country.
well. And I know it's something you spoke about it at that meeting too. But I just wanted to say, if prophecy is such a big part of, say, I'm just going to generalize it and say a big part of the Nigerian culture or most cultures, right?
Mm,
And we know that it is linked briefly through certain people. So, like mad people that people would not take seriously, which is again it's very ironic. But then, if this is the case truly, and we know that, like in Abulu's case, everything he had prophesied comes to pass, right? But then he
mm.
was still not taken care of. He was still not taken seriously. So, like, why, if we know that it is a general part of our culture, why do we treat the people who are, say, closer to the spiritual with such disdain?
Well, because um, in general, if there's any I've not really been I have not been a sort of a public intellectual. I only do when I really have something to say. A lot of people will ask me, "Oh, comment on this," like some of our writers do, Chimamanda, for instance. So I just feel like my thing is to write, and whatever I want to say, I say it through there. But if there's any criticism that I would make about Nigeria, but also many African countries, is that in general, we do not take care of, the vulnerable. As you know, the poor is poor. The poor is maligned. In fact, everybody, in fact, look at the writers. Some of you, wonderful people whose potential may not be realized in Nigeria is one of the impetus for leaving, because everybody is so interested in their own thing that we've lost that sense of communal advancement. What is often forgotten is that you are poor if you are very wealthy and everybody around you is poor. See, they're going to come one day come. If they are very hungry, they will break into your house. If if everybody else is poor and you are the only person who is rich, they will hate you. They will try to rob you, and your relatives, you would have to be giving them almost everything you have. So the wealth is in communal wealth. If everybody else is rich, nobody will even notice whether you are rich or not. But there is that ego, that sense of being called an organ. There's a lot of dysfunction in our societal norms that change. I mean, I have a whole thing about it that changed because of the aftermath of colonialization, when everybody had to leave their locales and come into to form a united country. So the norms changed. Lagos, for example, is in Nigeria responsible for a lot because everybody had to come to this new place. Even a new language was formed, Pidgin, because all these illiterates have to converse now with the few that were going to school in the early 20s and 30s. And, so dilution came, is a mismatch of everything. Same with the norms. If you are somebody so a few were preserved, like respect of elders is still kind of there. So those things are lost. Before, in the Igbo communities, no, you don't allow people like that to go. They are preserved. In fact, I write about that in An Orchestra of Minorities. That's one of the reasons why I wrote that novel. In many ways, it's a history of the Igbo people, as well as it's a personal story of this one guy. So I go back almost 700 years, to give the custom. So you will see there that this is not how we used to be. We were not people who will take but of course, there are always bad eggs. In fact, you can see it in the road to the country. During the war, a lot of things changed. The war has a way of remaking a society. So people became the kind of people who want to take because there was so much need for survival. So one person will go and take the food that is meant for our community just because he's afraid that maybe tomorrow there might not be a supply of stockfish. So he would take everything. Sometimes people were robbing Europeans who came to give food to help their people. They will waylay them, ambush them, and take the whole food for themselves. So that now transferred after the war into a guy goes into government. He knows he was complaining for years. Oh, there's bad road, there's no light. God go punish all these politicians. Then the moment he gets there, all he's doing, the guy who has been complaining for years, is that he's saving money, flying his girlfriend to Dubai. but you were complaining, you were causing these people. What changed? Well, is how things have become, sadly. So that trickles down to folks like that. Abulu is supposed to be in some sort of institution and being taken care of, but is allowed to roam the streets.
Thank you.
All right, my friends, I can take one more question. I enjoyed talking with you, but I do need to go.
Okay, let me allow Ndidi ask. I was going to
Okay.
tell everybody, please, to keep their questions short so that other people can ask
No, no,
questions.
no,
What
no.
about
Yeah,
me?
Ndidi was next before you. It was before you. So let Ndidi
Who
ask
said
her
what
question,
about me?
Laide.
Who?
Laide, you can text Chigozie.
Where is she? Okay,
She's
she's
here.
still
She's
there.
like, what? Ndidi,
No,
please
no, no,
ask your
no. She
question.
has to ask me. Right
But
there.
let Ndidi join us for the first time.
Okay.
So
Ndidi,
please,
yes,
let
please.
Ndidi ask.
So
Laide, you can ask. Yeah.
because you are acclimatizing to the weather, like there's a lot of pollen in the air, so maybe you should ask your primary care doctor to
I am telling you. So I have a sunroom and I came in the other day and everywhere was green.
green. Yeah, I don't know if other
Goodness.
parts of America are experiencing it as bad as Georgia. Anyway,
Boy.
I have to say, I'm not a very big reader, and actually, maybe this is going to upset everyone here, but it was actually an audiobook I listened to. The narrator you chose, fantastic. He more than delivered. Like his, just everything was on point. But what I found the most intriguing is that your book, your descriptive power, the way you write, the book stays with you for days. I have a friend, I think she has joined Abu. I told her that 3 days after, I'm still replaying scenes. Like the way you describe, like you can almost smell. I don't know. Maybe this is going to irritate everyone, but there was a part you were talking about a child that was poo-pooing. Like you could almost smell it. So descriptive power is just phenomenal. But two questions I had, because I think I read a synopsis, or maybe it's on Wikipedia, that Abulu represented the colonial masters, and there was something about Abulu and being like there was like a hidden message. So it wasn't just like face value. And I don't know, I can't remember the source, but I read something about Abulu representing the colonialists or colonial masters. And then because we're Nigerian, I just thought for you to have put something that taboo there, for him to have raped his mother. And I know, I mean, Olus talked about him raping a corpse, but I just thought his mother, it was so I had to put the book, I paused it. I was just like, nah, I can't, I can't. I'd actually researched it, like what was the significance of that. So if you don't mind, could you please clarify? And it was an excellent book. You are a phenomenal writer. One last thing. I mean, this is the only book I've read, and I'm obviously going to read more. I love the fact that you don't overwhelm your book with so many big languages or big words that we have to pause and carry thesaurus or dictionary. Like it's enough. You know what I mean? Like it's decent enough and simple enough for us to read and understand, but we still learn in the process. So well done. You're a phenomenal writer.
No, I appreciate your very kind words. And please, those of you who read, please give her a lot of books to read. We need you to read, Madam Didi. Okay, so in terms of the larger message, so that's another thing that I try to do. So, I believe that I have to tell a personal story in a novel, but also there's always going to be a larger story. You know, The Road to the Country is an example of that. Is the story of this one guy who really is changed by the war. He has to transform himself as a result of the war, but also is the story of this seminar history in Nigeria. It will give you, because I feel like there is a gap in the corpus of literature around the war. What you see mostly is people writing about the lives of civilians, but we do need, everybody seems to be shying and running away from, the battles and that the violence. War is violent. Is the main product of or byproduct of war is death. And somebody had to write that story. So that's what I did there. Here, that is exactly the case. So even though I'm very interested, as I said, in sibling bonds and rivalries and what can incite and fracture that bond. Um, and the drama of that, the implicit drama of that. I was also thinking while in Cyprus, I was quite disenchanted when I went to this place called North Cyprus. It's between Greece and Turkey, and is divided into two, the European side and this place that is like Biafra is a pariah country, is recognized only by Turkey. It's supposed to be dirt poor, but to my shock, they had functioning system. I went to school here. They had electricity. Their hospitals were good. And I just could not understand it. Like Nigeria is not just a country, and they got independence the same day as Nigeria, October 1st, 1960, from the British. How is it that this country is functioning and Nigeria is in chaos? And it disturbed me. And so as I'm conceiving of this novel, thinking about this sibling rivalry, I'm also thinking so I began to read. I'm thinking, how did Nigeria get like this? And I'm reading all the books about the history of Nigeria, all of the books you can think of. In fact, I read a book written by Lord Lugard, Frederick Lugard, who formed Nigeria. There's like, I think 2 copies. One of them was in the Library of Congress in the US. I had to find a way to get them to photocopy and send to me. It was a whole thing. And the conclusion I came to was that Nigeria should not have existed. Even if it had existed, it shouldn't have existed in the form in which it did. And here is the one reason for that. So if you look at the makeup of countries, most countries, let's say European countries, Scandinavia, for instance, Norway, Denmark, Finland, Sweden, there's always first a national identity. We're Swedish people. We're white, whatever. Our language is Swedish. We're Christians. We have a history. And then they formed the country, Sweden. So they already have the identity. It's like, these days people are always like, I don't know who I am. If you are trying to find who you are not established. Even in your mind, you can't do anything. So now think of a nation. But the reverse is the case. Nigeria was formed, and then we now had to become Nigerians. You see. So 1914, these guys, Nigeria is formed as a country. My grandfather was living in in a village in Abia State. He did not know that he was a part of a country until he died. He never knew that he was Nigerian. Nobody told him. Nobody asked him. He was, some people, when they get to Lagos, the Nigerian, what is that? They don't know. So you see, in fact, that's what happened. Once the British left, they said, over to you people. Over to who? The debate began. What is a Nigerian? What does it even mean? Okay, is a Nigerian somebody who is from Abia State, who lives in Kano? How does that even square? And then at that time, when these debates are happening, the people in Kano are killing the Easterners. The Easterners do a coup and kill all the Northerners. So the whole idea became in flux. We don't even know what a Nigerian is. Then the people in the West, Awolowo and the rest, they are all also saying their own thing. Okay, well, Nigeria should be like this. So up until today, I don't feel like I know what a Nigerian is. In fact, there was a conference that people were calling National Identity Conference for Ganifa Oyemi, Shoyinka, and some other people back in the 1999, 2000s. I think they had that conference, but it was, of course, a failure. Alex Ekweme. But so that would have been where people would have decided and come up with an idea of what the country actually would look like. So my thesis is that the foundation was very wrong, and it's hard to recover from that. So, and why? Because somebody came in and decided for these disparate people, this is how you should be now. You are Nigerians now. And people who have lived, the man in Aba did not know until the beginning of the 20th century that there's a place called Kano and the Hausa people exist. Some knew, the people in Onisha who had trading, but the further part had no idea. So now, now they are part of the same country. So that is the thing. So that to me is the equivalence of a prophecy. The madman is the British who comes in. I'm not saying that this is an approximate allegory. No, everything doesn't have some sort of symbolism. But as a metaphor, that is the way I conceived it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I have to go and feed the children. I'm home alone, as they
Can we
say.
take our group picture, please? Can we take our
Please,
group
yes.
picture? Oh,
Appreciate
yeah,
it.
everybody, please. If you have the book with you, can we take our group picture? Can we take our group
I think
Thank you.
Lala wants to talk. Oh, she said she wants
Thank
to. She's had her hand up
Our
since.
hand up.
Please.
Okay.
Just give us a quick commentary, my
Oh,
friend.
yeah, now, like they talk.
Most of
I
you
was
are
just
reading the UK version, I think. That's the one on
Do
the
you have your
iPad.
books? Do you have your
just
books up? Oh,
just
yeah,
a
like they
very
talk.
quick question. The book was set during a very tense period in Nigeria, MKO Abiola and June 12. How much influence did that have on the setting and the background of the story? That's
I
all I
was
have.
obviously, the ringtone of my childhood was MKO, you be the
That's
man.
my book.
So yeah, so I wanted to set it at that time, also because it was quite familiar with me and to me, and it's also one of the findings that I made. I believe, I could be wrong, that if he had won that election, Nigeria might have a chance. That guy was a billionaire. He was already very rich. So that would have been the first time when somebody who wasn't looking to get rich would become president of Nigeria. Of course, it doesn't mean that he would be totally pure, but he was also one of the first persons to have an actual, what was it called now? The things that you will do. Um, this political thing that will
Manifesto.
Manifesto.
yes,
Yeah.
manifesto, yes. That I thought, even at the time, I was quite young, but rereading the history of that time. So I felt like that was a time when Nigeria missed an opportunity. This is my personal belief. Of course, there's no way of knowing he could have gotten there and become a terrible president. We don't know. Yes. So I thought I would recreate that period as well as a sort of a monument. People can always read and remember that time, the atmosphere, everything. And also, a lot was happening in that period. Nigeria won the Olympics at that time, so which was quite big, as a sort of a national or international recognition for the country. So it gives more weight to the novel in that way.
Mission accomplished. Well done.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you so much. Okay, take a photo.
Okay, so everybody, do you guys have your books? Okay, big smiles. Okay, big smiles, everybody. Okay, Chigozie, before I say goodbye to you to go feed the kids, one last question before you go. I wanted to ask, right, because this story has to do with the collapse. It shows the collapse of brotherhood, where trust dissolved, love becomes fear, family becomes a battlefield. If these were three sisters, do you think that it would have happened like this? Yeah, that's my last
Oh,
question.
no, of
Before I
course
let you
not.
go.
No.
If these were
The story
three
would be
sisters,
different. The story will be different. I mean, this is stuff that happens with men mostly. And, but of course, that is what I know. I had uh, so four people are older than me.
okay,
So I kind of grew up with them. And after me, there was a sort of a gap. So one of them, my older sister, well, just one person is a girl.
okay.
So I know boys very well, always fighting and stuff. I don't think that it will happen that way. Of course, it could still happen that they would splinter and fracture, but in a different way. I don't think that violence would be involved. Women like to keep grudge. Women have their own
So if you
special.
had said, so because I'm the oldest of 6 girls,
Mm.
so and I have 6 sisters. So if it were girls now, maybe the prophecy would have been this one's husband, this one will marry this one, snatch this one's husband, this one's boyfriend will take this is that.
Yeah.
Would it have been that way?
Probably, yeah, something like that. But it could also be, women love in general to be called beautiful, and a sort of validation is I don't really care if you think I'm handsome or not. I mean, it's okay, but I don't wake up and, especially as you get older.
Yeah.
I have a friend, and I think the crisis of her life, she just turned 48,
Mhm.
is she's very attractive, but I think she would be extremely depressed if people stop calling her beautiful. And the time will come. I'm telling you, the time is going to come when that will be the case. She will have very serious problems. I'm not saying that everybody's like that,
Mhm.
but a good number are like that. So it might come true that if the prophecy is that you're going to have an accident that would deface you somehow, I think that would be a tragedy, So
Yeah.
so that's just the nature of people.
Thank you so
All
much.
right,
We'll let you
I
go now to
appreciate
feed
it.
the kids.
By the way,
Yes.
the play version is going to come to Toronto. So
Okay. Oh, please let us
yes,
know. Share with us, please.
yeah. So yes, if you follow me, I've just posted
Okay. Okay.
stuff about it. So it'll be good
Okay.
to see it. I have seen of course, it's British actors, but the same script. So
The same.
somebody adapted it. It
Okay.
was done. It had a run 2017, 2018 2018, 2019 in the UK, and
Okay.
then in South Africa, and it did, even won some awards.
Okay.
People love the play. So I hope that this cast will be the same kind of thing. Yeah, so it's
It
it's
should
in
come this
March
way.
next year.
Yeah, it will
Say
come this
again?
way. Hopefully, if it goes to Toronto, it will come to Ottawa because Ottawa is the capital.
Okay, well,
Hopefully,
we'll
come
see.
this way.
Just go to Toronto and watch it. Better go.
Yeah,
Toronto,
yeah,
I
that
just
would
came
be.
back from Toronto. Okay. All
It's
right.
not gonna
All
come to
right, bye
Ottawa, so
now.
don't even.
Do you
Thank
mind
you.
sharing where we can follow you?
On IG.
Well, I'll put it
Yeah,
in the
of course.
chat. I'll
I'm
put
I'm
it in
on
the chat.
Instagram. That's really the one place that.
Instagram. Okay.
Okay. All right. Bye
All
bye.
right. Thank you so much.
Thank you
you.
very much. Bye.
Oh, that was really, really good.
That
Really,
was
really.
lovely.